Many fans of Kindred the Embraced are not aware that it's based on a tabletop role-playing game called Vampire the Masquerade. And that's a game where you take the part of playing a vampire in the modern world and you act out that role of the vampire. Vampire the Masquerade was created in 1991 by White Wolf Game Studios, and it was part of a bigger setting that was called World of Darkness. And that includes lots of other supernatural creature types like werewolves, mages, and vampire hunters. Vampire the Masquerade they made hundreds of books, and we literally sold millions of copies. Many of the modern concepts about vampires that have become common in the last 20 years, they've been influenced by Vampire the Masquerade. And this includes things like there being various clans of vampires that have differing powers among them, or a ruling vampire political body that enforce vampire laws, and sort of the idea of vampires being rooted in Christian biblical history. In Vampire the Masquerade, Cain is punished by God for murdering his brother, and he's forced to wander the earth for all time. He later partakes in the blood of Lilith, who was Adam's first wife, and she's known as the mother of monsters. And as a part of that, he actually gains these formidable powers. In time, angels approach Cain, and he's offered the chance to repent for his sin, and he refuses. And each time he refuses, he's given another curse. So these are things like a weakness to fire, or a vulnerability to sunlight, and finally, a hunger for blood. Eventually, he passes this curse on to his children, and they spread across the globe, disguising themselves as mortals, and eventually create a ruling body of vampires called the Camarilla. And they work to enforce these traditions. The primary one among them is the Masquerade, and this is sort of this overriding protective idea that mortals must never know about Kindred, or they would be destroyed by humanity. Eventually, for players, the vampire experience sort of became centered around a group of hardcore fans known as live-action role players. And these are people who go out and go to live events sort of across the world, and they act out these schemes and machinations of the Kindred. And for a lot of them, it's sort of a core social circle that they spend their time interacting with, and it's as online or meeting at places in the real world. And they also spend a lot of time just creating these just super elaborate, handcrafted, gorgeous costumes.
LARPing is live-action role-playing, where you make a character and essentially you build a sheet to describe their attributes and what they can do, but more importantly, you write a background, like, a history, a biography for the character, and then you role play that character accordingly, almost like your improv theatering kind of thing.
Well, once I started playing this character, I realized that, you're really good to be able to have a safe place to put all those emotions and to be able to be angry and to be sad and to be upset. And you can't always get away with doing that in real life. You're told to, stiff upper lip and don't act like that and don't act out. And then once I was able to start doing this and playing, this is a place you can put all that. And at the end of the game, you can step back and walk away from it and go, okay, I feel better for putting that out there in this fictional character. But at the same time, it makes you feel better because you're not carrying as much of that around with you when it's all finished.
I just like the idea of making characters that are completely different from you and have completely different motivations and backgrounds, and then going with it and seeing where the story goes.
I try to do kind of a mix of both, is integrate my own ideas with what the character should be like, with events that have already happened both in the real world and within the continuity of our games.
It's LARPing in general. I mean, I think it's a great, escape from, real life troubles from work and all that. So it's definitely helped me, to kind of relax more and, to explore different things, even making friends. It's definitely a great thing about that.
Most of my closest friends are role players that I met through Vampire live action role play. They've really been a very strong part of my life. It's got me to travel places I never would have. Got me to go out and do things and see things that normally I probably wouldn't have done.
I now pretty much have friends all over the globe. I can travel to Australia, to Europe, or wherever, and there are people that I know there.
I would say that being a part of this community and knowing these people has affected me in many positive ways. I have made more friends than I think I've ever had in my entire life, and people who take me out, they're like, come to a con, come hang out, and then I see people and I'm like, oh, I've met you before, and we have these things together, and just having people I can go and hang out with every week, and it's just been really good for me. In many ways, it's boosted my confidence tremendously, and it's been really good. I think it's one of the better things that's ever happened to me, actually.
It's really become a community onto its own, and while the gaming is what we have in common, what it comes down to is we're all there to help each other out if we ever needed it, and that's nice to have.
In 2006, White Wolf merged with an Icelandic game company called CCP Games, and they are the creators of the world's premier sci-fi game, EVE Online. And under the new banner of CCP, White Wolf has started converting Vampire the Masquerade into World of Darkness. And it's an online game where millions of players will be able to interact with each other and vie to become the next prince of the city. The game itself is going to be a political and physical and social struggle for control of the World of Darkness. And it's part of what we've come to know as a sandbox experience. And this means that the players have as big a control over what happens in the world as the game designers, or even more so, actually. The players really control everything, and they sort of chart the path for these complex interactions that players use to help shape both the physical and political landscape.
In the World of Darkness, you and your friends play with thousands of other players. You might use politics and scheme your way to the top and become the prince of a city, or you might fight using some of the coolest action you've ever seen in a massively multiplayer game to fight a war against other vampires and finally control the mortals of the city.
The look for the game is going to be amazing. We have the way light interacts with surfaces and being able to kind of pull that across the atmosphere, the weather that we're going to have in this game, you know, the rainy streets, the fog rolling in. It really sets the tone and sets the mood for the kind of game that we're trying to make. Fashion has been a really big priority for the team. You know, we've in the past we've brought in consultants, and you know, we've gone out and tried to find, you know, the best we can. We want to rival the real world. We want to put control into the player's hands. And so one of the big elements for characters, it's not just character selecting and going with what, you know, this person wants, or oh, I have to play as this other person's character. But we have this layer system where every person's going to own their own style, and they can, you know, mix and match these beautiful, beautiful garments and basically create their own idealized like fantasy to live. One of the biggest inspirations that we've had with our fashion is actually looking at our fan base. So you look at the people out there, you look at the cosplay community, you know, the LARPing and everything else, and there's a lot of love and a lot of dedication that goes into the details of these outfits. And we're trying to do the same on our end, and we're trying to kind of pull from where those interests are and what the players are looking for and the characters they've created, and make sure that we not only give them the ability to have those same characters in our game, but we actually expand that closet for them and do stuff that they could never, you know, either afford or could do, you know, in the real world.